Hello and welcome to Saturday. Won't be long, we'll be completing this week and heading into a brand new and eventful week it will be. We're getting ready for I think I heard something about an election coming up next week. Well, in between now and then, we still get to interact with the idea of the return, and we're talking about Hosea's story. We're breaking down, moving through verses in the book of Hosea, and we get to see the role of a lifetime as Hosea plays YHWH. He is portraying for all of Israel, for all of Judah, for the kings, for the priests, for the leadership, for the Sanhedrin, for the assembly of the people, you name it. He's living out in full and living color in the texture of everyday life how God is seeing their heart, what's going on deep inside of them, and what is on the horizon as a result of it. Now when we look at the second chapter of Hosea, we're about to finish out. Tomorrow will be the last day in the chapter, and then we will move ahead in the book of Hosea for our next week of devotion. I guess the pace we're taking is a chapter a week just to move through the book of Hosea and focus in on this role of a lifetime. As we consider the 21st and 22nd verse of Hosea today in our devotions, we hear the Lord now say, "In that day, I will respond." Now, again, this is that idea of that day. That day. You pick up an idea in the book of Revelation, and since we're studying in the book of Revelation, this will connect with some of the people who are paying attention to our series on Revelation, as well as tracking along in our time of meditation and devotion. But you get the outline of the book of Revelation, where in the Greek it uses the phrase metatauta, after these things. After these things. That's what it's translated as, after these things. Metatauta. So in the English, it's after these things, and there is a threefold delineation, threefold outline. I think that's a better term, threefold outline in the book of Revelation for understanding it. That which I have shown you, that which has occurred, that which I will show you, and that which is going to come after this. And so there's a movement that is kind of outlined for us in the book of Revelation. And that key word, metatauta. There is this idea of prophecy. There are people who believe that all prophecy is done with. It was all historical. I'm not one of those people. I believe there is still much to come to ultimate fruition. And it is this forward looking into the future of in that day. That we're talking about the day of the Lord, and we're talking about after the day of the Lord. And I have a clue that we need to get right here. This has not happened yet. This has not happened yet. There is a limited sense in which this can be understood to speak of the blessings of God and supernatural and spiritual impact upon our life. But it is still awaiting actual historical fulfillment within the context of the people of Israel. And we need to heed the words of Jesus to Cleopas, as recorded in the book of Luke, about the 22nd, 21st, maybe 23rd chapter of the book of Luke. It's only 24 chapters long. When Cleopas is walking on the Emmaus road from Jerusalem to the village of Emmaus, a Sabbath day journey. And as he's walking with another disciple, then we have Jesus appear, join them, and begin to talk to them and ask them what's going on. They then reveal what happened, but how they don't believe. And Jesus simply says this to them: fools and slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. All that the prophets have spoken. Well, I think it's a foolish conjecture to concede that the book of Hosea has been completely fulfilled. It is still out there in the future for the people, the natural people of the covenant with Abraham, the descendants of Isaac, of Jacob, the actual people of Israel. And so we have a fulfillment still laying out there ahead of them in that day, and which is over 3,000 years ago, and ahead of us in this day. Well, I want to be more accurate. This was spoken to them about 700 AD. This is now 2020. So let's add those together. 2,720 years ago. This is what was spoken to them. And I'm here to say it will happen. In that day, I will respond, declares the Lord. I will respond to the skies, and they will respond to the earth. So we have a restoration of withheld rain. There is going to be, because one of the great things about the covenant of the land of Israel is that they understand that the former and the latter rain is considered to be the blessings of God. And they see it as divine favor, because the weather cycle could be easily disrupted and was disrupted under the voice of a prophet. Try out 3.5 years without rain and the resulting famine across the northern kingdom of Israel. And so in that day, he says, I will respond to the skies, and they will respond to the earth. And the earth will respond to the grain. When the grain is placed within the earth, now there's going to be a bountiful harvest. The earth will respond to the grain, the new wine, and the olive oil. Now, just a little aside here. It's very interesting that there is a barley harvest which is celebrated very close to Passover. Then at Pentecost is a grain harvest feast. After that is the Feast of New Wine, about July or so. And then there's a Feast of Olive Oil that comes about. There were multiple feasts that were celebrated, and so now we have this being restored. The grain offering, the new wine, and the olive oil. In fact, it's believed that Jesus performed the miracle at Cana during the Feast of New Wine, which occurred in about July. In about May, June is Pentecost. In about June, July is New Wine. In about August, September, somewhere in there, is the Feast of Olive Oil. So this is a restoration of feasts. This is what this is speaking of. And they will respond to Jezreel. And they will respond to Jezreel. Now, Jezreel, the name, means God sows. So there is going to be a bountiful blessing and harvest because God sows. And this is a wonderful idea and a wonderful picture of harvest and produce, because don't you know that when the Lord plants, He plants well, and it brings forth bountifully. So that's what we want to focus on today. Let's make this our meditation. When the Lord restores, everything responds to Him, including us. And when He restores, it's because He has been sowing, and no one can produce a harvest like God can. God sows. So let us focus upon that, and let us open our heart to Him and say, God, I want You to sow in me. I want to provide a willing and receptacle, a willing soil to receive all that you have for me, because you are in the sowing, SOWING business. Lord bless you. Have a great day. Hope to see you tomorrow.